Thank you very much. Good morning. This whole weekend is devoted to the upcoming Yom Ha'atsmaut, the really big milestone that we're about to celebrate, 70 years of Medinat Yisrael. And although for many of us, when we hear Yom Ha'atsmaut and we think about it, it's something that's very, very exciting, very, very uplifting. I'm sure that everyone is aware that it's also the subject of not a small amount of controversy within the religious community. And I just want to touch on one particular aspect of that controversy. And it's an aspect that doesn't only divide those who observe Yom Ha'atsmaut from those who don't, but even among those who observe it, there is a certain nuance that remains somewhat. There's several, but one particular one that I want to focus on. And it doesn't only relate to Yom Ha'atsmaut. There's a tefillah that was formulated by the chief rabbinate shortly after the state was founded, which is recited in many batei Kinneret, right? The tefillah l'shlom ha'medina. And the official text reads, Avinu shebashamayim tzur Yisrael v'go'alo, our Father in heaven, the Rock of Israel, etc. Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Right, defining the state of Israel as the first flowering of our redemption. And there's a claim being made there, and that is that the miraculous events that we have witnessed over the past perhaps 70 years, perhaps going back even 120 years or so, are being viewed as the fulfillment of the prophecies of the final redemption. One does not have to make that statement in order to say that this is something dramatic and miraculous for which we can and should thank God. And in fact, there are some people who recite the prayer and simply omit those three words, Barechet Medinat Yisrael, without defining it in messianic terms. So that's the question I'd like to look at. If we look at the prophecies, and there are many, we certainly are not going to be able, in the short time we have here, to look at it anything other than a small sampling of them. But if we look at the prophecies that describe the redemption that we've been waiting for thousands of years, and we look at what's been going on in our own generation and perhaps one or two generations before us, can we say that what we are experiencing is in fact the fulfillment of those prophecies? Let me first make the case for why I think it's clear that it does. And then we'll have to deal with the questions of why someone would think otherwise. And in order to do this, I have to tell you, Jesse mentioned that he defined me as director of a seminary called MMY, which I, in fact, was one of the founders of and did direct for 16 years. But I corrected him that I left there a number of years ago. And I teach in a few other places now. But one of the things that I do now is that I'm a tour guide. I teach in classrooms, as I always have, but now some of the classrooms I teach in don't have walls. And there are things that you can learn in Eretz Yisrael, from the land and in the land, that you cannot learn in a classroom. So if I could, I would take you now to someplace in Eretz Yisrael and show you something. I can't exactly do that, but I did bring a photograph, okay? And I want to because it's the type of thing that you sort of have to see it. So I'd like to sort of, just for 3 minutes, reenact for you a scene that I participated in just a few months ago with some of my talmidot, some of my students. I took them we were on a trip in the north of Israel, over the Kinneret. Those who are familiar, we had come down the road from Mount Tavor, through Yavneel, towards the lake Kinneret. And we stopped at a lookout point above the ocean, the lake, I'm sorry. And this is the scene, okay? This is what it looked like. This photo I found on the internet. It's taken more or less from the place we were standing. What do we see here? We see a very pretty lake. The city of Tveria is a little further north. This is the southern Kinneret basin. So you see a lake with nice blue water. You see some boats on the river. You see some houses and some farms. This is Kibbutz Kinneret. Over here, Kibbutz Ein Gev. This is the Golan Heights above there. Very green picture, farmland, houses, some cars. Okay, so we were standing at a lookout point, seeing approximately this. And I told my students that almost exactly 150 years ago, a group of people showed up at that lake that we know about. These were Christians from the United States who had traveled to the land of Israel on a boat one of the first steamships to cross the Atlantic Ocean in the year 1869. Had on it a group of tourists. Some consider this the beginning of the modern tourism industry. Now that we had steamships, you could cross the ocean very quickly, or at least relatively quickly. Today you wouldn't consider it quick at all, but it was something that you could actually go someplace and just for a trip and plan to come back. And someone had marketed this voyage to the Mediterranean and the climax to the Holy Land. And on this boat were a group of American Christians. Some of them were very, very pious religious Christians who were on a religious pilgrimage, and others were Christians that were not so religious, just more interested in the tourism aspect of it. The reason we know so much about this particular voyage is that one of those Christians in the second group, the less religious of them, his name was Samuel Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain. Okay? And he wrote a book describing what he saw, which is fascinating. And I want to just read to you, as I did with my students there, just a few short lines. He's a very sarcastic, cynical guy, and you also have to, get your head into 19th century English, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But he describes what he saw when he came there. Now, for Christians, you have to understand the Kinneret, as we call it, or the Sea of Galilee, as it's called in English, is a very important place, one of the holiest places for them. And he talks about how the pilgrims on this trip were visibly emotional that they're finally going to see the Sea of Galilee. And he's also interested. And he gets here and he writes, again, this is what we're looking at, okay? The celebrated Sea of Galilee is not so large a sea as Lake Tahoe in Nevada, where he was from. It's just about 2/3 as large. And when we come to speak of beauty, this sea is no more to be compared to Tahoe than a meridian of longitude is to a rainbow. And he goes on and talks about how, if I would translate this into Brooklyn English, you'll call this a lake? This is like a puddle. What do you call this thing? And he talks about how he's so disappointed. He was expecting this majestic lake. He starts describing what he saw. Just a few lines here. Unpeopled deserts, rusty mounds of barrenness that never shake the glare from their harsh outlines and fade into faint and vague perspective. The stupid village of Tiberias. Okay, it's not in this picture, but I am sure many people here have been to Tveria. He calls it a stupid village with 6 palm trees. Later on, he says that there was only one other tree on the other side of the lake. That's it. Barren, empty, nothing. Except one stupid village of Tiberias with 6 trees. On the other side of the lake, one single tree. Everything else barren, empty, desolate. And he says, this is the Sea of Galilee. And it looks a little different today. That's 150 years. And then I told the students that this, first of all, is a miraculous thing. But not only is it a miraculous thing, it seems to me that this was predicted precisely in the Torah and in the Nevi'im. At first, let's look for a minute at 2 psukim in Dvarim. And here I have to quote my teacher and neighbor, Rav Yoel Binun, one of the great scholars of Tanakh today. Has he ever spoken on this program? Oh, you've got to get him at some point if he's ever in the United States. He doesn't travel as much as he used to. What was that? He doesn't want to come. Okay. So I'll quote him. Okay. He points out that this event, when this gentleman, Mark Twain, came and made this declaration, seems to have been predestined or predicted in the Torah. We read in Parshat Nitzavim, in Perek Chavtet of Dvarim, Pasuk Chaf Aleph, after telling us that we're going to go into exile and the land of Israel is going to be destroyed and become utterly desolate, it says, Ve'amar hador ha'acharon b'neichem asher yakumu me'achareichem. The day will come when your descendants will come. Ve'hanochri asher yavo me'eretz rechoka. And a Gentile who will come from far away will come. Vira'u et makot ha'aretz ha'i v'tachalueha asher chila Hashem ba. Who will come to the land and see how it's been utterly destroyed. Gofrit v'melach sreifa kol artza. He'll see that it's as if somebody scattered salt and destroyed everything. Kimapichat Sdom v'Amorah. It's going to look like Sdom v'Amorah was after they were destroyed. And this non-Jew, this Gentile, is going to come from far away. Rav Yoel says, this is Mark Twain, who comes from far away and says, Ve'amru kol hagoyim al ma asa Hashem kacha la'aretz hazot. Why? What caused this terrible destruction? But then I said, now let's look at the prophecy of Yechezkel. If we turn to Yechezkel, Perek Lamed Aleph. There's a prophecy in which the Navi Ezekiel was told to speak directly to the mountains, perhaps to mountains like these that were once desolate, surrounding Lake Kinneret. And he said, and we're told, he's told, the prophet, Vata ben Adam, I'm reading from the beginning of Perek Lamed Vav in Yechezkel, Hinavei el Harei Yisrael, speak to the mountains, prophesize to the mountains, Ve'amarta Harei Yisrael, Shim'u Dvar Adonai. Ko Amar Adonai Elohim, Ya'an Amar Ha'ayev Aleichem He'ach, Uvamot Olam L'Morashai Ta'alanu. Tell the mountains, I know that the enemies have mocked you as you have become desolate, and they feel that they have conquered you and inherited you. Lachein hinavei ve'amarta ko amar Adonai Elohim yan biyan shamot v'sha'of etchem misaviv. Even though you have been destroyed and made desolate, liotchem morasha l'sherit ha'amim, to those who have conquered and inherited you. Lachein harei Yisrael pasuk Dawud shimu dvar Adonai Elohim ko amar Adonai Elohim leharim v'lagvaot la'afikim v'legeiayot. So know that God speaks to the mountains and to the valleys. V'lecharavot hashomamot v'le'arim hane'ezavot. And God speaks to the destroyed towns and abandoned cities. Asher hayu lavaz l'sherit hagoyim asher misaviv. Those that others have mocked. And he says in pasuk Vav, Lachein hinavei al admat Yisrael. Speak to the land of Israel. V'amarta leharim v'lagvaot, la'afikim v'legeiayot. Say to those hills and valleys, Ko amar Adonai Elohim, hinei bekinati v'chamati dibarti, ya'an klimat goyim nasatem, because you have been mocked and humiliated by those nations that defeated you. Lachein ko amar Adonai Elohim, ani nasati et yadi. God says, I swear. Im lo agoyim asher lachem misaviv heima, klimatam yisau. Rather, those nations now will bear their own shame. And the next pasuk is particularly significant because the Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin says about this pasuk, Ein lecha ketz megule mizeh. The Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin says that when this verse in the Bible is fulfilled, this is the clearest sign that the redemption is arriving. Va'atem harei Yisrael. And again, picture the scene sitting on top of that hill looking down at this. After having read Mark Twain's description from 150 years ago. Vatem harei Yisrael, anpechem titenu, uperyechem tisu. Give off branches again, and give fruit once again. Le'ami Yisrael ki kervu lavo. For my people Israel who are coming home. Ki hineni alechem ufaniti alechem v'ne'evaditem v'nizratem. You're going to be worked again. Farms are going to be planted in you again. Virbeiti aleichem adam. I will bring many people to live upon you again. Kol Beit Yisrael kulo. All of the house of Israel. V'noshvu he'arim v'hecharavot tibanena. And the cities will be inhabited once again. So here we have it. 150 years ago, the Nochri comes me'erech rukoka, just as the Torah said, and said, you call this a lake? All I see here is a little puddle of water with a stupid village and 6 trees on one side and one on the other, and everything else barren deserts. And the prophet says the day will come when that will change, and the Gemara tells us that this is the sign of the redemption, and we come 150 years later and it's filled with life. Farmlands and homes and people. And that stupid village is a bustling city. And so is this not the fulfillment of this prophecy? Let's take one more look at a prophecy. Dvarim Perek Lamed. And I'll describe these psukim the way I see them from my hometown of Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion, which seems to be a popular residence here this weekend. 3 of the 4 speakers this morning, we all live in the same town, and the 4th one spent some time there also. So I'll describe it from that vantage point, but really you can see this anywhere today in the state of Israel. But those who've been to Alon Shvut know that just outside our town, there's a little dirt road called Derech HaAvot. It's the ancient road between Hebron and Yerushalayim. Anyone who traveled in the times of Tanakh between those 2 cities walked right on that road, right past what's today Alon Shvut. So, for example, Avraham Avinu, when he came into Eretz Yisrael the first time, walked on that road. Later on, when he took Yitzchak to the Akedah, he walked right there. Yaakov Avinu. And the Bible tells us the following. This is the Torah, Perek Lamed of Dvarim, shortly after the pasuk that we read earlier. And again, in the context of that description of the lengthy exile and suffering and how we're going to be scattered across the earth from one end of the earth to the other, the Torah tells us, "Vayak yavo alecha kol advarim ha'el habracha v'haklala asher natati lefanecha." After all of these things happen, the blessing and the curse, "Vahashevota el levavecha b'chol hagoyim asher hidichacha Hashem elokecha shama." Something will begin to stir inside of your heart. V'shavta ad Adonai Elohecha v'shamata b'kolo kechol asher anochi mitzavcha yom ata uvanecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. You will return to God with all of your heart and all your soul. And then v'shav Adonai Elohecha shvutcha v'richamecha. And then God will have mercy upon you. V'shav v'kibetzcha. And God will go and gather you mikol ha'amim asher hefitzcha Adonai Elohecha shama. From all those nations where He scattered you, He will go and gather you from there. Im yihiyeh nidachacha b'ktzei hashamayim. No matter how far away you've been sent, misham yikabetzcha Adonai Elohecha umisham yikachecha. From there, God will find you. He will gather you and He will take you. And sometimes when I need to get a little chizuk, when I need to get a little strength on my own, I just walk into the shul, the main shul in my town, which looks over that road. And I look around the room. I've lived there over 20 years. I know most of the people. We have in our little village, and again, this is true anywhere in Israel. I just see it from my vantage point. In our little village that we call Alon Shvut, we have Jews from every continent on earth. I and many of my friends, of course, and including the people who spoke here this morning, come from North America. We have people from South America, Argentina, Venezuela, Peru. We have people from Europe, England, France, Germany, Denmark, from Asia, former Soviet countries, a few people even from Hong Kong, from Africa, South Africa, Ethiopia, North Africa, Australia, New Zealand. No matter how far away you are, God will find you there. And then I look out the window and it says the next pasuk, so God's going to find you from all these places. Ve'heviacha Adonai Elohecha el haaretz asher yarshu avotecha, looking out at the very road that our ancestors walk on. And it says God will bring you back from all those lands of exile to the land that your ancestors inherited, virishta, and you shall inherit it. And then I look at the guy standing next to me who's wearing a green uniform that says Tzahal on it. You shall inherit the land. Veitivcha v'hirbecha me'avotecha, and things will be even greater than they were for your ancestors. And I say again, can it be any clearer than this? Is it not clear that these nivuot are being fulfilled in front of our eyes? So frankly, to me, the answer is it is clear. But there's still debating, there's still discussion, and why? Well, there's one verse that I just read that seems a little bit out of place in the narrative, or at least that some feel is out of place in the narrative. If I'm going to come and make the case that I just tried to make, and I could go on like this. I'm actually holding myself back from doing so because I have many more examples, but we need to analyze things a little bit. So there's one verse that I just read that doesn't seem to fit the narrative, and that is pasuk Beth. After, what does it say? It starts with all the destruction and all the exile, and we know that those have been fulfilled, those prophecies have been fulfilled. And then it continues with the ingathering and the exiles and all that, but there's that one verse in the middle there, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha v'shamata b'cholo, kechol asher anochi mitzavcha hayom ata uvanecha, b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. Right? That a prerequisite to this ingathering of exiles and a prerequisite to this reestablishment of Jewish presence and the land of Israel coming back to life and the people coming back to life in its land is supposed to be that we're supposed to do teshuvah, that we're supposed to repent, that we're supposed to return to God. And those who are concerned or are hesitant to describe the events that we're living through as the fulfillment of these prophecies, this is the not the only, but this is the primary issue that these people raise. Has that criteria been fulfilled? Has the Jewish people repented? Is it not the case that we still have rampant assimilation? Is it not the case that the vast majority of the Jewish people is not observing the Torah? And where is that? And not only that, but this entire process was led by people, if you go back to the beginning, People who not only were not observant of Torah, but in many cases were even very, very strongly opposed to halachic observance or defined themselves as atheists. Even Ben Gurion, I believe, defined himself as an atheist, for example. Herzl was an agnostic, I think. So how can it be? How can it be that you call this the Geulah if, in fact, we haven't fulfilled that criteria, that requirement of teshuvah? That's something that we need to contend with if we want to make that claim. If we want to describe this as Reshit Tzmichat Geulateinu. There are a number of answers one can give. First of all, one can suggest that maybe this isn't it after all. Okay, maybe we should. And again, that doesn't mean we can't celebrate. It doesn't mean we can't say thank you to Hakadosh Baruch Hu for what He's blessed us with, and pray for more. But perhaps we should remove those words from the tefillah, or, as some have done, change them slightly and add a word like Shetihiyeh Reshit Tzmichat Geulateinu, which would turn it not into a declarative statement, but into a prayer. Right? We pray that this will be, or will become, the first flowering of our redemption. And yet many of us continue to recite the prayer in its original formulation and to declare, as many have, Rav Kook, both the elder and the younger, and many others, that no, this is in fact the redemption. And how does that fit in with this whole model? I see that this is taking longer than I expected, so I'm going to speed things up a little bit. But I will say that the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, first of all, on Daf, without reading inside, on Daf Tzadi Zayin, I believe, there is a debate as to the exact nature of the relationship. Is, in fact, repentance a prerequisite for redemption or not? Can the redemption happen even if we don't? What happens if the Jewish people never repents? Will we never be redeemed? Or is it going to sooner or later have to happen anyway? And then the Gemara, and this I do want to read inside, and Daf Tzadi Chet, raises the possibility, based on a pasuk in Yeshayahu, that perhaps there are two possibilities. The Gemara says, there's a pasuk in Yeshayahu, we're going to look at some other pasukim in Yeshayahu in a minute, which says, Ani Hashem bi'ita achishena. I, God, shall hasten it, referring to the redemption. I shall hasten it in its time. And the Gemara says that's a sort of paradoxical statement. What do you mean, hasten it in its time? K'tiv bi'ita, u'k'tiv achishena. If it's happening on time, I was told here that in the Syrian community, things never start on time, they start late. I don't know if things ever start early. But if something's on time, it's neither late nor early. If it's happening early or late, it's not on time. So what does it mean it's going to happen on time? Early. I'm going to hasten it in its time. And the Gemara resolves that, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, as saying, Zachu achishen, lo zachu be'ita. It can happen either way. If we merit it, achishena, then we can hasten it and it will happen early. Lo zachu, if we don't merit it, it's going to have to happen anyway. In other words, there is a deadline. And if that deadline arrives even without us meriting it, then it's going to happen. But if we merit it, it can happen earlier. And therefore, perhaps one could say, okay, so maybe we don't merit it, but it's happening anyway. But then the Gemara has another similar discussion that seems related to this. Amar Rabbi Alexandre, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Rami, Chtiv ve'aru im anene shmaya kivar enosh ata. He quotes a pasuk in Daniel that describes the redemption as something very, very miraculous, like a miraculous figure coming down from the heavens, a very glorious, dramatic revelation. Uchtiv, and he quotes a pasuk in Zechariah, ani v'rochev al chamor. The Messiah is described by Daniel as appearing in a very, very dramatic and glorious manner, and by Zechariah as a poor man riding on a donkey. And those also are two visions that seem to contradict. And the answer is that he comes up with is similar to what he said in the previous one. Zachu im anunei shmaya, lo zachu ani v'rochev al chamor. If we merit it, then it will be dramatic and glorious. And if we don't merit it, It will happen anyway, but then in the manner that's described as a poor man riding on a donkey. So perhaps, I don't know how that'll make us feel about the emotional scene I painted a few minutes ago, but perhaps we might have to say, well, it's clear that it's happening, but it doesn't look like we really deserve it, so maybe this is the poor man riding on the donkey. In which case, I don't know how much we want to celebrate. I mean, I guess we have to celebrate anyway, but that sort of dampens the picture dramatically. How much time do I have? What's the 11:10? Okay. Let me just speed up here a little bit. I'll just give some bullet points, and then I'll get to the main point I want to make. I'm sorry? Okay. I just bought myself 5 minutes. Okay. One might suggest that there is, I don't know if you can use this term, but a machloket, a debate between two prophets on this matter. Yeshayahu, Isaiah, and Yechezkel, Ezekiel. Because in many places, those two prophets each present a certain vision that at least at first glance looks to be very different. Isaiah very often speaks about, first of all, in very, very beautiful and glowing terms about the redemption, and very clearly connects it in many places with tshuva. And one place to start are psukim that I hope are familiar because we read them an hour or two ago in Shacharit when we read the Kriyat Torah that we read this morning for Rosh Chodesh. That's Yeshayahu Perek Nun Hey 55, Pasuk Vav. The Nevuah begins, Dirshu Hashem b'himatz'o kira'uhu b'yoto karov. We have to seek out God. We have to call out to Him. Ya'azov rasha darko v'ish aven machshevotav. Let the evil person abandon his evil ways, and the evildoer abandon his misdeeds. V'yashov el Hashem v'irachamehu. Let him return to God, and God will have mercy on him. V'el Elokeinu ki yarbeh l'sloach. God who is quick to forgive. And then later on, this is connected with the Geula, with the redemption. In Pasuk Yud Ki v'simcha teitzeu v'shalom tuvalun heharim v'hagvaot yiftzechu lifnechem rina. Again, an image of the mountains blooming and rejoicing and coming to life. Tachat hanatzutz yaleh v'rosh v'tachat hasirbad yaleh hadas. Instead of those weeds that were growing in the land, now we will have, beautiful plants and bounty. So there is one example where Yeshayahu describes teshuvah, repentance, as leading to a very, very glorious type of redemption. Zachu, in the language of the Gemara, a redemption that comes because we merit it, and therefore it happens as a result of our actions, and it's very, very glorious and dramatic. Maybe I'll give you just one or two other examples of that. In Perek Chaf Vav of Yeshayahu, we are told the redemption is described in similar terms. Beginning of chapter 26, Bayomahu Yushar Shir Hazeh Be'eretz Yehuda. They will sing the following song in the land of Yehuda. Ir Azlanu Yushua Yashit Choma V'chel. The cities will rejoice. Pitchu She'arim. Open your cities. Ve'avo Goy Tzadik Shomer Emunim. And let the righteous nation which has remained faithful enter. And those who are redeemed are described as tzaddikim, as righteous people who have earned the redemption through their faithfulness. So either they have remained faithful throughout, or perhaps they've sinned but they've repented. One more perhaps, Perek Mem, chapter 40 of Yeshayahu, which is the Haftarah that we read on the Shabbat immediately following Tisha B'Av, Shabbat Nachamu, begins with those well-known words, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. Be consoled, my people. Yomar Elokechem. After all of the horrors that we've experienced, God says, be comforted. The redemption will come. Dabiru alev Yerushalayim v'kir'u eleha. He's told, call out to Yerushalayim. Ki mal'at tzva'a ki nirtza avona. She's been punished enough. Her sin has been forgiven. Ki lakcha miyad Hashem kiflayim b'chol chatotea. Whatever she did to deserve this, she's had her punishment, and she's now purified and now deserves to be redeemed. So call out, kol koreh b'midbar, etc. Panu derech Hashem yashru ba'arava misila le'Eloheinu. Just clear the way for the redemption because the sins are forgiven and now you're going to be redeemed. So Yeshayahu seems to clearly present the redemption as something glorious and dramatic that happens as a result of the fact that we deserve it. Zachu achishem. But Yechezkel has a little bit of a different view. Let's start with those psukim that I read so passionately, showing you the scene of the Kinneret. So I at the time, and on the tiyul with the girls, I didn't go on, as I'm going to now. I just talked about how amazing this is and how beautiful this is. But a few verses later in that same chapter, so we're back to chapter 38, Lamed Chet, of Yechezkel. He says things that are not so happy. I'm sorry, Lamed Vav, 36, I'm sorry. Wait, what chapter was it? I'm sorry. Yeah, Lamed Vav. Pasuk Tedvav, 15. This is just a few psukim after that beautiful image of the mountains coming back to life, and the pasuk that the Gemara says is the clearest sign of the redemption. Vayi dvar Adonai elai lemor ben Adam, Beit Yisrael yoshvim al admatam, vayitam'u ota b'darkam. The people of Israel are dwelling in their land, and they have defiled it with their ways. Kitumat hanidai tadarkam lefanai. They have defiled the land. Vayshpoch hamati aleihem. I will pour out my fury upon them. For the blood they have spilled and the impurification that they've created. And I'm going to scatter them among the nations. So I'm going to punish them and I'm going to exile them and scatter them around the world. Okay, so we know about that. Yeshayahu speaks that way as well. But where's the redemption? The redemption comes here too, but without tshuva. Pasuk Chaf Aleph. No, first of all, Pasuk Chaf. Vayavo el hagoyim asher ba'u sham. So they're going to go out to exile, and you know what they're going to do in exile? Vayichalelu et shem kochi. They're going to defile my name in exile too. Be'emor lehem am Hashem eileh ume'artzo yatzahu. They're going to set such a bad example, and the goyim are going to say, these are the nation of God? They were thrown out to exile because they didn't deserve it. And they're not going to deserve it then either. But you know what's going to happen in the end? Va'echmol al shem kodshi. I'm going to have mercy on my own name. I look bad, says God. Asher chilalu beit Yisrael bagoyim asher ba'u shama. Because of what the Jewish people are doing. I look bad. And in the end, I'm going to redeem them, not for their sake, because they don't deserve it, but for my own. Lachein emor leveit Yisrael, pasuk chabet, ko amar Adonai Elohim, lo le'ma'anchem ani yoseh beit Yisrael. Don't think I'm doing this for your sake. You don't deserve it. Ki im l'shem kodshi asher chilaltem bagoyim asher batem sham. You're being redeemed for my sake, for the sake of my name that you are supposed to represent and you failed to represent. I'm redeeming you to avoid chilul shem shamayim. You don't deserve it. And he said the same thing earlier in Perek Chaf. I'm not going to read the whole thing inside, but just a few verses, and then you can look it on your own. Chapter 20 of Yechezkel gives Yechezkel's view of the history of the Jewish people. And it seems to be a very pessimistic view. It starts like this. Pasuk Bet. Actually, let's start from Pasuk He. ואמרת להם כה אמר אדוני אלוהים ביום בחרי בישראל ועשה ידי לזרע בית יעקב ואיוודע להם בארץ מצרים. When I first appeared to the people of Israel in Egypt, ועשה ידי להם לאמור אני אדוני אלוהיכם. I appeared to them in Egypt and I said, I am the Lord your God. And I took you, and I'm ready to redeem you. Pasuk Zayin, va'omar alehem, ish shikutzei einav hashlichu, uv'gilulei Mitzrayim al titamau ani Hashem Elokeichem. I came to you in Egypt and I said, here I am, I'm ready to redeem you. Give up your idols. Give up your idolatry. I'm ready to redeem you. Vayamru bi, and already there in Egypt, you rebelled against me. V'lo avu et lishmo elai. You didn't listen to me. Ish et shikutzei eineihem lo ishlichu ve'gilulei Mitzrayim lo azavu. You didn't give up your idolatry. You continued to follow the evil ways of Egypt. Va'omar lishpo chamati aleihem. And I really wanted to destroy you right then and there. L'chalot api vahem b'toch eretz Mitzrayim. I wanted to destroy you right there in Egypt, and I didn't. Do you know why? Va'as lema'an shmi. I did it for my sake, not yours. Leviti hechel leinei hagoyim asher hema b'tocham, so that my name not be defiled among the nations. And I don't have time to go through the rest of the parak now, but you'll see, he can go through it later if you want. You'll see, he continues to describe the history of the Jewish people. Every step of the way, we fail. We don't deserve it. We really should be destroyed. But for the sake of God's name, we just keep getting pushed along in the process. And even a very well-known and very dramatic nevuah that is very beautiful, when you look at it more carefully, you have to ask about it. And that's Yechezkel, Perek, Lamed Zayin. Here as well, I won't read the whole thing, but just enough to, I'm sure many people are familiar with this. Hayta ala yad Hashem, vayotzieni beruach Hashem, vayinicheni betoch habik'ah, v'him le'ah atzamot. Yechezkel sees himself transported into a valley which is filled with bones. The commentators debate, did this actually happen? Was it a prophetic vision of something that happened? Or is it all just a metaphor? But it doesn't really matter. He sees thine bones, v'hinei yeveshot me'od, they are dry. And he's told, he is asked, Hatichyena hatzamot ha'ela, can these bones live? And he said, only you know, God. And he's told, prophesies to the bones, and the Spirit of God comes, and the bones begin to move, and they start coming together, and they become skeletons, and then become human bodies, but they're still not alive. And then finally the Spirit of God comes to them. Let's just read the last few psukim. Pasuk Yud. V'hidnabeiti kasher tzivani, I prophesied as I was commanded. V'tavo v'hem ruach, v'yichyu, v'yamdu aragleihem chayil gadol me'od me'od. And they finally arise and stand on their feet, and they are alive again. He witnesses a resurrection of the dead. And he's told, again, whether this actually happened or whether this was just a vision. Either way, it's a metaphor. Even if it actually happened, it's used as a metaphor, because he's told, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Vayomer Elai ben Adam, ha'atzamot ha'ela kol Beit Yisrael hema. These are the house of Israel. This is the Jewish people. Hinei omrim, they say, Yavshu atzmoteinu ve'avda tikvateinu. Sound familiar? Right? Somebody sat down 100 years ago or so and wrote, Od lo avda tikvateinu. He was referring to this Pasuk. The dry bones said, our hope is lost. Nigzarnu lanu, our fate is sealed. I'm going to open your graves. I'm going to bring you back to life. Am Yisrael is going to come back to life. And again, these are very stirring words. It's no accident that it became Israel's national anthem. And you know that these words, this parak is read on Israeli national radio once a year. You know when? On Yom HaShoah. On Holocaust Remembrance Day, the state of Israel, you open up the 6 o'clock news in the morning and they read this parak about bones coming back to life. So it's very dramatic and very inspiring and very beautiful. But what's our role in that? Absolutely nothing. We're dead bones that are brought back to life because God had mercy on us. We didn't deserve it. We didn't do anything. So Yeshayahu presents a vision that perhaps is Va'aru im aranei shmaya zachu achishena. And Yechezkel presents a very, very pessimistic vision. You don't deserve anything. It's going to happen anyway, but you don't deserve it. Really, you should have been destroyed. Really, you were already dead, dry bones, and God's doing it for His sake. So that's what it looks like. But I think that the picture I just presented, as convincing as perhaps it sounds, is oversimplified. And a more in-depth study, which obviously we're not going to do in the last few minutes, but I'm going to show you one example. A more in-depth study, particularly of Yechezkel, I think it's true in Yeshayahu as well, shows that both of the Nevi'im present both options, and that the drasha, the midrash that the Gemara does in Masechet Sanhedrin about Zachu Achishana Lo Zachu Be'ita actually is there in the Pshat of both of these Meforshim, of both of these Nevi'im. And let me just give you one example of this in the book of Yechezkel. And to do it, I'd like to bring you back to words that we recited just over 2 weeks ago at the Seder. In the Seder, there was when we were telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, there's a passage where, this is the part that a lot of people start to get confused and start getting lost, where we start going through the Psukim, Arami Oved Avi, Vayered Mitzrayma, and we start interpreting midrashically each word in those verses that tell the story of the Exodus from Egypt in order to try to understand them more deeply based on the rabbinic midrashim. And we get to one place where it says that in Egypt we became a goy gadol atzum varav. Right? We went down to Egypt as a small family, and or maybe a large family, but just a small number of people, and we turned into a great and mighty and multiplous nation, goy gadol atzum varav. And then the Haggadah quotes a pasuk that seems just bizarre. Varav and many, kema shene'emar, and it quotes a pasuk in Yechezkel, rivava kitzemach hasadeh netatich, vatirbi vatigdali ba'adi adayim, shadayim nachonu, v'sa'arech tzimeach, va'at eirom ve'eryah. A very bizarre and sort of graphic description of a young girl, naked and bloody. That's what it says in the Haggadah. And then there's one more pasuk, va'evor alayich, and I passed over you, ve'erech mitboseset b'damayich, I saw you wallowing in your blood, va'omar lach b'damayich chayi, va'omar lach b'damayich chayi. And I said to you, in your blood you shall live, or perhaps I said to you, in your blood you shall live. What? What's that doing in the Haggadah? What is the message? Why are we talking about this? It's a very unpleasant pasuk, sort of graphic and what other than the linguistic connection, there's a wordplay going on there. Varav, rivava, ketzemach hasadeh. What in the world is the author of the Haggadah and that midrash trying to say? And the question becomes even more compounded when, if you notice, that if you go back and check, the original text of the Haggadah only had the first of those two psukim. The pasuk that describes the young, naked, bloody girl. The second pasuk, Va'omar lach b'damayich chayi, was added about 500 years ago by the Arizal. And he added it, it appears in the same passage in Yechezkel, but he added it out of order. The two psukim, that pasuk that he added after the one that was already there, actually appears before it. And what was the Arizal trying to tell us by doing that? And what is the message of that whole scene there? So here as well, for lack of time, I won't read the entire thing inside. But this entire discussion is found in chapter 16 of Yechezkel, which is one of the harshest of Yechezkel's nevuot. And what he describes there, let's just read just a few of the psukim. Vayhi dvar Adonai elai lemor ben Adam hoda et Yerushalayim et to'avoteha. Tell Yerushalayim about her abominations. V'amarta ko amar Adonai Elohim Yerushalayim mechorotayich u'molodotayich me'eretz haKna'ani avich emori v'imei chitit. You were born to these immoral, idolatrous parents. There's a parable going on here. U'molodotayich b'yom huledet otach. When you were born, lo charat sharech uvamayim lo ruchatz lemishiv hamlech luhum lacht v'achtelo chutalt. When you were born, no one took care of you. They didn't cut your umbilical cord properly. They didn't wash you off and clean you. They didn't swaddle you and diaper you. Lo chasa alayich ayin. No one took care of you. Lasot lach achat me'ele. You were neglected. Vatushlechi el pnei hasadeh. And you were thrown in the bushes. Begoal nafshech. Just covered in blood, left to die. B'yom huledet otach. And you know who saved you? Va'evar alayich va'erech. I came and I saw you mitboseset b'damayich. I saw you lying there in blood, about to die. Va'omar lach b'damayich chayi. Va'omar lach b'damayich chayi. I said you will live. And then it says, Revava ketzemach hasadeh netatich v'tirbi v'tigdali. You started to grow up. You became more mature. But you were still naked and bare. And finally it came time that you were ready to get married, and I myself took you under my wing. I cleaned you off. I gave you beautiful clothes. I married you. And then he goes on to say, and then you disappointed me, and you went and betrayed me, and therefore you deserve to be destroyed. Okay, so what's the message here? God said, that's talking about Am Yisrael. You were there in Egypt, you were completely helpless. I came and I saved you and I took care of you. And then you rejected me. So again, it fits into everything we've said before about Yechezkel and how he sees the redemption as something that comes simply because we don't deserve it. We're unfaithful, we're ungrateful, we're good for nothing, and God comes and redeems us. So that's the message that we want to talk about on Seder night. And why did the Arizal switch the order of the Psukim? If you read a little bit more carefully, you'll see that Yechezkel was actually giving a much more subtle message. The image, right? We have this metaphor, right? We have this baby that was lying there, left to die, and God is the man who came and saved her and then married her. That's a reference, that's a very well-known image, right? In many places that the covenant at Sinai is like a marriage, the Jewish people is married to God, etc. And then we betrayed him. But look more carefully. What happened there? I found you, he sees a baby. Imagine that this actually happened. Someone finds a baby lying abandoned. And then he says, don't worry, you're going to live. And the next pasuk, she's already becoming a teenager. And she's still naked. And she's still bloody. And then she gets older and it's time to get married. And she's still neglected. And only then, when he says, okay, now it's time to get married, he cleans her off and he gives her clothes So he saved her life, but he continued to neglect her for her entire childhood. What is the message the prophet is giving us by describing it that way? Well, that's exactly what happened. The scene where he finds the baby refers to when the Jewish people were enslaved in Mitzrayim, and Paro Melech Mitzrayim tried to destroy them, and God said, "B'damai chayi, you're going to live." And then he redeemed us, but there were a couple hundred years of slavery in between. He didn't redeem us right away. And we continued to suffer, and we continued to be mistreated. So it's actually a very accurate description. And what would you expect from such a child who had such a childhood of neglect? Would you expect that person to grow up and be completely faithful? Right? What happens to children that are abused and neglected in their childhood? So is the prophet sort of beneath the surface suggesting that, maybe things aren't as bad as I'm making it sound? Maybe there's some excuse. Maybe there's some justification. Maybe it couldn't have turned out any other way. And what's the Arizal doing? By reversing the order of those psukim. Jewish custom has us reciting this pasuk on two occasions. One is at the Seder, and the other at a Brit Milah. And that's based on a midrashic idea. I'm going to finish in 1 minute. I'm using my 5 minutes, but I'm hitting the deadline. V'omar lach b'damayich chayi, v'omar lach b'damayich chayi. The double reference to the blood, the rabbis tell us, refers to dam Pesach and dam Milah. You will live through the blood of the Pesach sacrifice and the blood of the Brit Milah. In other words, what the rabbis are doing in that midrash is they are taking something which looks kind of very, very negative. Right? The blood, in the simple reading of these psukim, is a reference to the impurity and the sin of the Egyptian world into which the Jewish nation was born and continued to live. And Yechezkel already pointed out that they refused to reject all of those sinful and impure practices that they inherited. But the rabbis say it can be something else. You can redeem that, and you can turn it into Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. And perhaps that's the message that we're supposed to be getting out of this passage when it's brought in the Haggadah. The Geulah is going to happen. And it's going to happen with blood. And there's different types of blood. It can be the blood of suffering and the blood of impurity. And you can be pushed along through history like Yechezkel describes, not deserving it, and it's going to happen anyway. Or you can convert that blood into Dam Pesach and Dam Milah, and you can redeem it. You can convert Achishena, Be'ita, into Achishena. And if I had more time, I'd show you that I think this is really the message of Yechezkel, and I think it's also the message of Yeshayahu. And with that, therefore, just going back to where we started, I return to the image that I showed you before, to me it's clear that the Geulah is happening. Is it happening because we don't deserve it? Or maybe we do? Maybe we're being too hard on ourselves? Is it so clear that the Jewish people has not repented? For that we'd have to ask, what are really the sins for which the Khurban came about in the first place? The rabbis talk about sinat chinam. Maybe we've gotten a little better about that. Rav Kook actually suggested that the Jewish people has repented. The mere fact that we've returned to the land of Israel and we've worked to reestablish the people of Israel, that itself is a form of repentance. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe it's happening because we don't deserve it. I'm not sure how to read that. But even if that's the case, even a redemption that's happening because we don't deserve it, a redemption of Be'ita can be converted into Achishena. Yes, Be'ita Achishena. Even if it's happening its time, it can be converted. B'damayich chayi, the blood of impurity can be converted into Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. And so, to me it's clear that we're living through remarkable, miraculous times where, and as having the privilege to live in the land of Israel and to be part of this on a daily basis, to go about my daily life, and I actually think this way. I walk around the streets and I just walk around, look around me, and I'm amazed by what I see. And to realize that we are living through this dream, this historic process of the Nevuot of redemption, first of all, is something that we have to take note of, and we have to be grateful for wherever it's happening. And at the same time, we have to try to take stock of the situation and say, okay, so if we have the privilege of living in such remarkable times, what can each of us do individually, and what can we do as a klal, as communities, and as a nation to rise it up to one more level, to take advantage of this opportunity and to redeem it, and to turn b'damai chayi, to turn the blood of impurity into dam Pesach and dam Milah. May we all be zocheh in the coming days to really, really celebrate this momentous occasion with all of Am Yisrael around the world, and to be filled with gratitude for the miracles that God's doing for us, and to make a commitment to each one of us individually and all of us together to find our way to contribute to this process and to move it forward and to see its speedy fulfillment from Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu to Geula Shlema B'mehera B'yameinu.